Oh, the weather outside is frightful. Blah, 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 blah. You can tell that it's winter in Los Angeles because I'm wearing a hat. Also, because I get too lazy around this time of the year is when I get my hair cut like once, maybe twice a year because I'm too lazy. And lazy. I just have better things to do with my time than to groom myself. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Good. So let's see what we got here. Okay. I think I'll do this one first because I realized. First of all, I've been reviewing some of the more recent episodes of this thing, and boy, do I repeat myself a lot. It's like I'll tell a story one week, and then the next week when I'm talking about the book, I'll just tell that story again. I think there's times where I catch it. I go, "Why the fuck wouldn't you have said this last week?" So, also, welcome my new co-host, Nice Sweater, which I've had since 2009. He's not so nice anymore. This is the sweater I wear. It has holes in it. I have like a safety pin that I put through them. It's still pretty punk. The sweater was bought for me by a girlfriend who was aghast at the state of my wardrobe when I was 32. We're friends now. It's not a big deal. All right. First up, sweater. Did you want to do? No, you're gonna. First up, Extreme X-Men #1, which is largely I bought this week so I could not ever buy it again. I've talked on here. This is what made me think of it several times about the verbosity of Chris Claremont, the irony that I would put so many words into saying how many words Chris Claremont uses. I think I also. Why did I bring this up? I mentioned this book specifically. I think I might have. I might have been thinking of X-Men Forever. Regardless, whenever Chris Claremont gets a wild hair to write an X-Men book, and this is just an educated guess on my part, Marvel goes, "Yeah, sure, you have the keys. We don't need. To you don't even need to ask." And I don't know how explicit it is in his dealings with Marvel. I would imagine it's at this point it's got to be just a given. Chris Claremont rarely, if ever, writes X-Men in the current continuity. It's always he stopped writing the X-Men on a regular basis in 1991, maybe early 92, and every time he's written for he's written X-Men since then. It's just been him picking up from there and carrying on. There have been exceptions. I believe he wrote Nightcrawler for a while, like about 10 years ago, and that did take place in current continuity. But generally speaking, it's his own. And so I'm just mostly just curious as to what that looks like these days. If it's the same old Chris Claremont. I mean, he always has Kitty Pryde up front. It's obviously always has been one of his favorite characters. And, it's the X-Men of my youth. It's very nostalgic by. Speaking of which, this week, Thanos, however you want to say it, Death Note's #1. This is a one-shot, oversized one-shot with a bunch of different creators who are all really good and who, this reads like a who's who of creative teams at Marvel today. You have Torn Grombeck on script, who I've mentioned before is Jason Aaron's protege. It's a bunch of different stories. So you have Grombeck, you have Christopher Cantwell, who just finished, or he's just finishing his run on Iron Man. J. Michael Straczynski, who's been around forever. Other names that I recognize. Matt Rosenberg, who's another indie darling from a few years back, who's been, I don't see his name. I think he writes for DC a little more often these days. In fact, I think he's writing the Joker title currently. Yeah, that kind of seems to have happened with this class. They wrote Marvel and then they all went over to DC. Rosenberg, Williamson, who else? Lemire kind of goes back and forth, but he's almost always going to be a DC guy. And Ron Lim is also draws a story in here, and he was the artist on Silver Surfer when I was a boy, so I always enjoy seeing his work with this cosmic stuff. A name completely missing from this credits list though is Jim Starlin, which only just occurred to me. But I don't know if he's currently cool with Marvel. Jim Starlin, creator of Thanos and many of uh, those Guardians of the Galaxy characters, like Star Lord, I believe was his. Um, I want to say the Collector was his creation. A lot of the cosmic Adam Warlock, who's apparently going to be in an upcoming MCU. I don't know if it's a movie or show. That's definitely Jim Starlin. And I mean, even up until just a few years ago, he was still writing Thanos stories for Marvel. But I think after Endgame, I think he was. I'm totally just. I shouldn't even pull it out of thin air, but I get the impression that Starlin is on the outs with Marvel, and he's always been like a renegade rebel type. He was never um, a company man and whatsoever. And if you read he was one of those guys in the '70s who everyone assumed was on drugs, and I think in his case it was the case. I know. Um, oh fuck, what's his name? Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts. Oh, I can see his name, Englehart. Steve Englehart was on acid when he wrote a bunch of Doctor Strange. That I know for sure. I think all the rest of them definitely experimented with drugs. Starlin, but Starlin is a kind of like I think he's a lot like Steranko, or I guess Steranko is a problem these days, but they don't give a shit. They're not fans of Marvel, that was really I think the biggest thing that set Jim Starlin apart from his peers was the guys like Steve Englehart and even Steve Gerber, not so much, but Jerry Conway and all these '70s guys who were huge fanboys, and that was kind of like that was the generation where that was the majority of guys working at Marvel were guys who had grown up reading Marvel. Starlin was not one of those guys. Starlin was like, I don't care. So he he created these characters, and they didn't reserve Thanos for him. But if he had Thanos stories to write, they were like, yeah, and he would draw them too. He was a double threat, as they say. So I don't know. I feel like for some reason I have a feeling that he's anyway. That's really neither here nor there. Also this week, and finally, this book from Dark Horse Comics called "It's Only Teenage Wasteland." Now, pretty much you put, and this goes for Sleepaway Camp 3: Teenage Wasteland. If you put a reference to the Who, specifically to Baba O'Reilly, in the title of your thing, I will give it a go. Kurt Pyers' name rings a bell. The writer, I'm guessing, because his name is listed first. From what I read in the solicit, I recognize Kurt Pyers' name, but I couldn't say from where. I don't know any of these other names. What I've read from the solicit and what I can tell from the cover, it's similar in vibe and in premise to What's the Furthest Place from Here, which is another teenage post-apocalypse story. There's a lot of those these days, and it's not like the Hunger Games either. It's more of a. I mean, I don't know. I since about 1990, I started checking out on current pop culture, and I've only gotten farther away. So I don't know what the kids are watching. Like the fact that I picked up on the Squid Game thing in the Murder World series, it's kind of a fluke because usually when something's that big of a deal, but I did watch Squid Game and I did like it. I feel like though that there's something in the air. There's something else out there, kind of spurring this interest in stories that revolve around teenagers in the apocalypse or the post-apocalypse. I don't know what it is, but I'm also on board. Also, it's the thing to keep coming back to nostalgia. Can we just forget about nostalgia? Um, these are these are written by guys around my age. Now they're younger than I am, but I feel like their experience. I mean, also, I don't think the experience of somewhat to completely disenfranchised young men in America has changed much since World War II, at least. Obviously, there's huge differences, but I think generally it's just a lot of this. Go kick rocks or whatever the equivalent, as opposed to from the '50s when I was a teenager. Anyway, all right. Finally, Oh, I said that already. Well, I mean, I had such a light week last week that it was easy to read everything, and now the stack is beginning again. But whatever. You know what? We can put that one over here. All right. First up, we read Avengers Assemble Alpha #1. Great stuff, fun stuff, great stuff, fun stuff. This was exactly what I expected it to be. When you have this is going back to Fantastic or the Amazing Spider-Man #1, when two characters or two teams meet, or one guy and two a team, whatever. When when whatever number of characters over here meets another, and if they're on the same side, so if it's good guys over here, good guys over here, they meet for the first time, they fight, and that is so traditional that Captain America points it out in this issue. The Avengers show up. I don't remember where now, but they show up. I guess it was in. Oh yeah, they travel back to 1,000,000 BC, where they meet the Avengers of 1,000,000 BC, who's Odin, Agamotto, Ghost Rider on a woolly mammoth, and this is the first time we've been reading about the Avengers of 1,000,000 BC for some years now. And when I say we, I mean the royal we, the editorial. I dropped off the fucking money. Sorry, that was a Lebowski reference for me. Yeah. So like I was saying last week, this now building towards the big fight against the multiversal masters of evil. Assemble, in this case, Avengers Assemble is their battle cry, but in this case, it's also there's 3 Avengers teams that now need to come together. There's the Avengers of 1,000,000 BC, there's the Avengers of today, and then there's the multiversal Avengers. This is also the first time we meet Avenger Prime, who has been this mysterious character throughout, and I don't believe it's revealed who he is, although it seems plain to me that he's English. It's because he uses some Anglicisms, and Jason Aaron is too good of a writer to, I mean, maybe he's trying to throw a curve my way, but wouldn't put it past him. But I don't believe so. But I also don't think he reveals who Avenger Prime is. I feel like it's going to be. Oh, I think I do. Okay, now I don't want to say in case I'm right. Yeah, I think I'm right though. And it's not the worst idea. I mean, we'll find out, and I'm sure I'll let you know. There's also something in this that made me scratch my head a little bit. Is that Kid Thanos, who had been on. Sorry, let me just catch up. All right. What was I saying? Avenger Prime. They don't reveal who it is. Who cares? It couldn't have been that important. But yeah, it was great. Oh, I was talking about young Thanos. Okay, so yeah, the character is introduced as Kid Thanos, but is now referred to in this book as young Thanos. And I don't know if I think I probably mentioned this. Tom Brevoort, who is an editor at Marvel going back years and years and years now. I want to say 30 years he's in now. Yeah, that sounds about right. Which means he's been an editor at Marvel for as long as I've been a Marvel zombie. Yeah, he would have come in 88, 89, which is when I started collecting. So 35, whatever. He has a newsletter that I subscribe to, Substack, which is a thing now. And every Sunday he sends out a newsletter and he answers questions and he talks a lot about working at Marvel for as long as he has, which is obviously I find fascinating. I've sent him a couple questions over the last year and I can't help but notice that they all go unanswered. But I did this week. I was like, okay, that's not because I mean I would ask stuff that was kind of obscure-ish. But I mean, who am I gonna ask? If I have the opportunity to ask Tom Brevoort a question, it's gonna be something kind of deep, like how come the Nam never came back? I mean, he was around when that book started. So I sent him an email this week and I was like, hey, I'm just curious why the change. I realized, and I think I said something like, was Kid Thanos already a rapper's name? Which is honestly pretty funny. Sometimes I don't understand why people don't find me more hilarious. Also this week, I read Planet Hulk: World Breaker #1. So this takes place 1,000 years in the future on Sakaar, which was the planet where Planet Hulk took place. And this only made sense as I was reading of it. Amadeus Cho is a major character in this story. Amadeus Cho, if you're not familiar, was a character created by Greg Pak. I don't think for Planet Hulk. No, that wouldn't make any sense. Was it before Planet? No, that couldn't be right either. I don't remember when Amadeus Cho was introduced. I want to say it was. Right after World War Hulk, maybe during World War Hulk was the storyline, and it was the major event of that year when the Hulk comes back from Planet Hulk. And boy, is he angry anyway. Amadeus Cho was a character that Greg Pak created, a Korean American kid, not unlike Greg Pak, who I believe is also Korean American. Also, I started watching Kim's Convenience today. Very funny stuff. That's Korean Canadian, though. It's not the same thing. But it does star Shang-Chi for some reason, who I don't think is Korean. It doesn't matter. No, he's the 8th smartest person in the universe. I believe that was his official title. He's like a genius kid, and he he does that thing which I think ended up in a meme eventually, but I don't think it was from here. But like where he could see formulas and mathematical language and stuff like that, and so he was. Yeah, in fact, I think that was so used several times where he would you could see what he was thinking. Anyway, he was a big fan of Bruce Banner's as a scientist, and he also felt bad for the guy, so he became like his new Rick Jones for a long time. And then he became a popular enough character that he had his own couple of titles for a while. I think it was after World War Hulk they gave Hercules his own title, which I think Greg Pak also wrote. So I think Amadeus Cho was even Hercules' sidekick for a while. They changed the Incredible Hulk to the Incredible Hercules for about 8 or 9 months. Just to, mess up my numbering and alphabetizing. So yeah, he's in this, and that was the main thing. Amadeus Cho, then he became the totally awesome Hulk. And so he was like, he could Hulk out, but he was still Amadeus, so he just had the body for it. And then he was on the newer Agents of Atlas that Greg Pak did not write, I don't think. But now he's back in a Hulk story, which is where he belongs. I think that was the main thing I was trying to bring up. Another character returned from a bygone age showed up in this book, Captain America Symbol of Truth #7. This is of the 2 Captain America monthlies. This is the one featuring Sam Wilson, who is essentially the Falcon, but is technically Captain America. But he still has the wings and everything. But also, I was like, I wonder who this character is, and it's Ian Rogers, of course. So back in about 10 years ago, maybe 8 or 9, Rick Remender wrote Captain America for about a year, and a very underrated run, and one that I've thought about because we have him at the shop. But in this story, Captain America he gets, I think, because of, I can't remember who it is, Zemo or somebody, sends him into another dimension Z, and it's like, a terrible place. But he meets this kid, this boy, and he protects him. And he ends up adopting him because he ends up in Dimension Z for like 30 years. He doesn't age because of the super soldier serum, and when they finally are able to pull him out of Dimension Z, no time has passed on Earth. But Steve has raised a boy to manhood. So he was able to bring in with him to, his universe. But I think he died because Sam mentions that when he shows up in here. Like, he died when we blew up the Hydra base or something like that. And that's something that I have noticed lately, and that I finally just kind of clicked in my head now. When I was a lad, it was common for comic books in the story, they would have little asterisks if the characters referred to something that happened in a previous issue or in a different comic. There'd be a little asterisk, and it would say, "See this comic for more editor's note." And that was a tradition all through my childhood. And then in the I want to say in the late '90s, early 2000s, those were gone. Like it in captions were gone by then. Like it really swapped over to just all dialogue driven, which I was fine with. But also, they replaced those editor's notes with a recap in the front, which I think the first time they did that was like 96, 97. And which was honestly not a bad idea. But, I sometimes felt this way, but I'd also hear other dorks complain about it. Because that's anything that changes from when you're a comic book nerd as a kid to when you're an adult is you have to complain about it. That's just the rules. And the reason Marvel even did that to begin with, or DC for that matter, was, they weren't going to make any money off back issues, but they wanted kids to get excited for these books and, I can go and search out, and then so, drawing them into buying comics on a weekly basis and for 35 years if they can get away with it. They've been doing that again. And I finally realized it's because the Marvel Unlimited app is finally a thing. Back issues are dead. There's still diehards out there. That's, my job is dealing with back issues. But people don't really collect comics the same way. They buy trade paperbacks. They want to read the whole thing. They don't want to go to the trouble of hunting down all the issues for a title. They want to have it all at one time and read it. I don't know how many times a day. It really is like daily almost that I'll hear somebody go, "Well, I can't read it until I have the whole thing," which is ridiculous. Especially, again, I know I've said that I've already gone on this rant. But now that the Marvel Unlimited app is a thing, and I think this is also because they must just give it to the writers. And the writers go, "Oh shit, I have the entire archive at my fingertips." So they go combing through back issues looking for characters like Ian Rogers to bring back. And, all right. Yeah. I have the app too. I can go read those old issues if I feel like it. I still prefer to have back issues, but I don't usually need, because I already read that Captain America. But they did a similar thing with the Planet Hulk story. They're like, "Oh, you can remember who Amadeus Cho is, and if you don't, here's where you can find him." So I think that's good. It's odd though that like something that's digital is actually adding back to the print stuff. I don't know. It's like taking an old thing from the print days. Anyway. Also, this week I finished Henry and Glenn Forever and Ever. This is good. The joke gets very one note after a while. So I wanted this edition. Speaking of, because it is the complete edition, so it's like, oh, cool. I would rather just have these all in one place. But yeah, the joke gets a little one note. It's, the adventures of Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig. And I don't even remember. I remember going on at length about the works of those two guys, but I don't know if I even just explained who they are or if I need to. Henry Rollins was the lead singer for Black Flag for many years. Glenn Danzig was founder and lead singer of the Misfits for many years, and they have gone on solo careers since the demise of those bands, and they're just kind of obnoxious dicks. And so this is the thing I will say about this book that I've never seen done this well. And I'll see if I can try to explain this without being canceled. Who's going to cancel me? Henry Rollins? There's a thing that liberal white boys like to do, and that is put a bug up the ass of conservative white boys. And we have found, because I definitely include myself in this number, we have found over the years that one of the most effective ways to do that is to compare conservative white guys to homosexuals. And boy, it drives them nuts. You even imply that they are gay, and it's a whole thing. The thing that I didn't realize for a long time and had to be kind of taught, and which I've actually had to say to other guys, because you would see this in. I had a very specific example that I was going to use, and now I can't remember what it is. Oh, okay, I think that might be it. There's a rap act from the late '80s into the '90s called the Ghetto Boys, who I'm a big fan of. Their early stuff, especially, and they are problematic as fuck. They are gross in a lot of ways. I've never played the Ghetto Boys for any woman I've dated. I no longer will do that sort of thing. Oh, you got to hear this, but I used to definitely all the time. Oh, you got to hear this band. You're gonna love them. Never do that with Ghetto Boys. Would never let a girlfriend hear me listening to them. One of their actually less problematic lyrics came from DJ Ready Red, who was the DJ. He didn't rap very often, and I think it's on the song "Do It Like a Geo," which is on the self-titled album from 1990 with the or 89 with the their mugshots on the front. DJ Ready Red, they give him one line essentially, and he says, "R.I.P. DJ Ready Red. He died a couple years ago." He says something about the KKK, and then he says, "Wearing dresses and shit. What the fuck are they gay?" Now you're in a position where you're like, look, I'm all for making the KKK feel silly about what they're doing, degrading it, or what have you. They're not wearing dresses. They know they're not wearing dresses. I knew a guy. This is more close to home. I knew a comic who, for whatever reason, asked me for my advice on a bit, and that he essentially had the same joke. Something about how gay it was, how gay the KKK was, and I was like, "Honey, that's not gonna really." He goes, "No, I'm making fun of them." I go, "I know you are, but you're using the lifestyle of a whole segment of the population to do it. That's just shitty." It took me a long time to realize it. This book never does that. This book is completely straight-faced about Glenn Danzig and Henry Rollins' supposed homosexual relationship, which I don't think they actually really have. But after reading this, I could totally believe it if they did. Their relationship is never the butt of the joke. But, and again, liberal white guy, I know these guys are all going, oh, the best part about this book is how insane it must be driving these two guys to imply that they're gay. And they can't really be angry in public about it. But there's one strip that kind of dances on the line a little bit, but it's towards the end. I remember reading, I was like a third of the way through, right? They're not like it's not like, oh, look at these gays. It's more just like, aren't they cute together? So, I mean, the joke kind of is essentially the same. It's just not, utilizing homosexuality as something that's like anyone should be ashamed of. I actually only realized any of this, oddly enough, during the Trump administration, because there was a lot of people were posting like Photoshop gay images of him and Vladimir Putin, and that was like a big deal. And then I had like gay people that I followed on Twitter who were like, "Hey, that's not cool, right?" I mean, you get the reason why it's like, oh, because they're so glowing, but it's like, honey, that's not cool. This book is cool though, so it has the liberal white man's seal of approval. Oh, what a breath of fresh air! What a relief! I can hear you all sighing in relief. Am I really going to try to make this to 30 even? Come on, I'm going to do it at 33 like a dick.